one of those realities he called memory moments. And memory moments was every single time the customer had an opportunity to judge the actions of the business. So in my particular case, building a swimming pool, I broke it down to where I had around like 40 memory moments. And a memory moment example would be, did the truck show up did they start the job on the time they said they would start it? I buy this gong, I bring it home. I know my wife's not gonna let me put it in the house. And I come up with this story. I go, okay, here's what we're gonna do. When it's your birthday, I'm gonna bring the gong over. You're going to hit the gong, the customer will, and the noise will go out in the ether of the space, and the gods will grant your birthday wish. So how can you make like a unique experience that can give people a little window of laughter and joy and something in your system? And how can you integrate that in for personal recognition? And that is, I'm always seeking ways to make my customers and my employees feel special and respected.
Welcome back to the Hustle and Grind podcast, the show where we dig into why real entrepreneurs trade comfort for conviction. This isn't about vanity metrics or overnight success. It's about the stories behind building a reputation that actually matters. I'm your host, Andrew, keynote architect, platform builder, and fellow founder in the trenches. Today, I'm sitting down with Bob Campana, the serial entrepreneur and hospitality visionary who has built a career defined by an insatiable hunger for human connection. Bob's journey is a masterclass in diversification and making your own way. He's navigated everything from the world of luxury leisure with hot tubs and pools to curating worldwide small group tours. He's conquered the high-stakes restaurant industry and built a presence on YouTube, proving that while the industry might change, the drive to create stays the same. He's the founder who's truly had the full experience in the trenches. So, Bob, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you being here, especially since you are the person with probably the most experience out of anyone on the show so far. So it's really been interesting that you've been in business for 50 years at this point. Again, that is the ultimate kind of, you get the award for the most amount of business experience. So I'm really excited to have you.
Well, yeah, either the most amount of business experience or, the highest survivor rate, there's a lot of dirt under those fingernails. Let me tell you, Andrew, a lot of scraping gone on over those 50 years.
Though, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's more of the way you do business. If you're not taking those chances, you're not, that's not necessarily the right way to do business. You should be taking chances and having this sometimes just scrape, and sometimes you get yourself into that situation. Talking about that, tell me about how you got started. Let's start at the beginning. Like, how did you get started in business? Is this something you always knew?
Well, at the very beginning, when I wrote my book, that was kind of an interesting thing because as a general exercise, you don't, I'm 72 now and next month. You don't really look back. What was I doing when I was 21? What was I doing when I was 15? I get you kind of retrospectively look at it on occasion, but so I had to focus on it. When I was 21 years old, I had an opportunity to take a trip around the world. And I spent around 7-8 months traveling to like 13 different countries on the hippie trail, more or less. When I came home, I was walking over an overpass, and I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time. I was walking over an overpass from the Bayshore Freeway, and there was a sea of cars, and every one of them had one person in it. And I had just come back from places like India and Nepal, and there was the wealth that represented. And I told myself at that point, I go, America offers your own determination to be in business, to make your own way and be self-determinate. And I'm not going to squander that opportunity that America gives me. And I'm going to go into business. So no money, no idea what that meant. I committed that to myself. And then I went to a hot tub party in Marin County. And that hot tub party transferred into a opportunity. We actually had moved from the Bay Area to Angels Camp, or Murphy's, California, which is in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. And in those mountains, there's little like reservoirs that had pipes that would go from the reservoir on the top of the mountain down to a little power generator at the base of the mountain. They had them all up and down the Sierra Nevadas. During World War II, they had made these feeder pipes out of redwood. because of the war effort, the metal was being used for the government was taking all the scrap and everything and making tanks or whatever they were making with them. So in the late 70s, PG&E began to replace those wooden pipes with metal pipes. Me and my ex-partner made a offer for 1,670 feet of this redwood 5-foot diameter pipe. We got it for $1,670, $1 a foot. We ended up making about 200 hot tubs out of that. We put new bottoms in them, and we sold 200 hot tubs at $1,700 each. So that was the beginning of my business experience, where I basically made a great deal. I added value to it and started my company. Well, when that started going on, we were getting called by swimming pool contractors to install hot tubs next to swimming pools, because that was a vogue thing then. People didn't want the spa. They wanted the hot tub with the wood deck. When we started doing that, that introduced us to the swimming pool industry. As the egos would have it, we can do as good as these guys are. So therefore went out and got a contractor's license of swimming pool construction and started building swimming pools. Well, I vertically integrated that company to where I had 15 different crews. I had excavation crews, plumbing crews, steel tires, tile setters, guniters, concrete finishers, carpenters. We had 170 guys working. We were doing around 500 projects a year at the end. And the motto was dirt to Disneyland, where we would take your backyard and transform it into a dream. That business basically owned my sales skills and owned my ability to be able to connect with people in a short amount of time, have them trust me, paint word pictures for them, because I wasn't selling them a car or something that was in a box. I was selling them a dream. They basically wanted a pool. We would draw a picture. I would describe what that would look like. I would enhance it through words and explain to them what it would look like. Sign a contract, in a lot of cases, 60, 70, 100 grand. That was many, many years ago. And then I'd construct it. Well, they had an image of what I sold them, and then I had an image of what I was going to build for them, and making those things meld together in communication so that they got what they thought they were buying, and I provided for them what I thought I was selling them, was a very ongoing exercise in communication, but it was also a way that you could fulfill people's dreams and truly give them something unique and different. And I discovered motivation, why people buy things, what they were wanting when they were doing that. I then added a revelation to where I was in a competitive environment, so I was always bidding jobs against other bidders, and I realized that the developers controlled the property prior to the people moving in, but the people had bought the home and it was being built for them. So I went and made a deal with the developers, about 15 of them, to where I was an exclusive agent to build the pool while they were building their house. And that basically catapulted me into another area, because what ended up happening was I could sell them even more stuff, and it would be a more included in a 30-year mortgage versus a 15-year home improvement loan. So they spent more money, and then I would go in there and do these beautiful jobs. The people would move in, the job would be done, and then my competitors would get the lesser projects because the big ones were taken off the table. So that grew the business to a point to where I had the stable of contractors. And then what I did is I basically sold the business to one of my competitors who was tired of getting the little jobs. And that transformed me into my restaurant career.
And I love the fact that you took an opportunity, especially with the redwood pipe, and being able to say, gee, that'd make a great hot tub, and then turning it into a hot tub. I mean, that's like the ultimate entrepreneurship, is being able to take a situation where they were going to throw this out. You have good redwood, and this was back in the day when if you had a pool, you were really cool. Like, this was a huge status symbol to have a pool and a hot tub, and you were able to take that and move that into something.
No, it was. Yeah, it's very much true. Yeah, because people were making a statement that they could afford a pool. They had reached a certain amount of stature that they could have. And but it was also such a wonderful training ground because I would sit across the table, kitchen tables with husband and wives 2-3 times a night. I'd start my sales calls at like 4 o'clock and I would get home to like 9 o'clock at night. And then if I was successful, which I had over time, my closing ratio was extremely high because I talked to people about how I orchestrated that business. And I think this is something that is a reality in all brick and mortar businesses. And I think it's even in all businesses. I read this book many, many years ago. I'm an avid reader. I'm constantly trying to learn. And this book was written by a man, I want to give him credit. His name was Jan Carlson, and he took over Scandinavian Air Systems. And that airline was a state-owned airline, and it was losing like $70 million a year. And in 24 months, he turned it around to a $17 million profit. And the Harvard Business Review went to him and said, exactly what did you do to make that transformation? He said for about 3 months, I just watched how the business operated. And then I had a crystalline moment where I understood the business was divided to grow the business, I needed to divide it into 2 realities. One of those realities he called memory moments. And memory moments was every single time the customer had an opportunity to judge the actions of the business. So in my particular case, building a swimming pool, I broke it down to where I had around like 40 memory moments. And a memory moment example would be, did the truck show up on, did they start the job on the time they said they would start it? Was my yard left clean and neat at the end of the day's work? Did they communicate with me as what was going to happen the next day? Was my plan being carried out as to the way that I thought it was presented to me? Was there dirt on the street when I came home from them working? Was there a big oil spot on my driveway because his truck leaked oil on? Was there Taco Bell wrappers rolled up in the corner? My dog was choking on it. Was the gate open? Did my dog get out and run around the sidewalk? Whatever it was, there was 3 outcomes to those memory moments: positive, negative, neutral. Now what I did is I started managing the memory moments. So what I would do is, in his particular case, he had this sky cap instance on the airline where there was a famous puddle in Oslo where his first class sky cap was, and that puddle, it rained all the time there. Every first class customer in Oslo knew if you were standing at that sky cap place and a car came by, you were getting drenched. He went in there and paved over the puddle. No puddle now. All of a sudden, his first class rates went up 35% because people remembered it. So now what happens is I'm managing these memory moments, and each one I'm wanting to give a positive outcome to it. And then I waited for the moment of truth. And the moment of truth went something like this. We built the pool. They're going to have a barbecue. They're going to invite their neighbors and friends and family over to show them the new pool. The kids are playing in the pool. The parents are having a glass of wine or a cocktail. And one of the parents goes to my customer, "Tell me, Joe, we were thinking about building a pool for our family. How did your company do it? And would you hire them again?" That was the moment of truth. At that point, the customer would review in their mind, their synaptic resources in their brain would review all the memory moments. And anything that was negative, they splurted it out right away. That's human nature. So as an example, well, we're pouring my deck on my concrete. When the day it was finished, I walked around and looked at it, and right next to the front step, there was a crack in the concrete. I called Bob up. I said, "Bob, I've got a problem out here. There's a crack in my concrete on my brand new swimming pool. Will you come out and look at it?" So you don't like those calls, but you got to go out and see what it is or upset about it. You go up there and you show them. And I had one question that I would normally ask them. "What do you think we should do about it?" The customer would go, "Well, it's right on the steps in the front of my pool. And if the pool cost $70,000, the crack was worth $70,000. That was the value in their mind of what that problem was. So I would go, "What do you suggest we do about it?" They said, "Well, it would really be happy if we just took this piece of concrete and report it." And I go, "You know what? That's exactly what we're going to do." Because it was a reasonable request. Now in the moment of truth, they would reiterate that story. They would basically tell them, we had a crack in the concrete. Bob came out. He asked us what we thought we should do about it. They replaced the concrete. They're an honest company. I'd hire them. With those moments of truth like that going on, I'd be transformed from a salesperson to an order taker. I would just come out and listen to what the customer's dreams were because they had a reference. They had a reference to someone they trusted. They had an example of what happened if something went wrong. And we were able to create that trust and future. So by sticking up on top and managing the memory moments, I transferred that into the restaurant industry where I transferred in why do people go out to dinner in a fine casual setting? Well, they go out for escapism. They go out to basically get away from their problems and their troubles, to share with their wife or their family a meal that's prepared for someone else and be able to not have to worry about clean up afterwards or the rest of it, and enjoy and hopefully laugh and have a good experience. So I worked on my restaurant to create that outcome. And I would do that down to the minuscule level, to lighting, shadowing, acoustics, the servers, what the environment was like, and carry that to the nth degree. And then that transported people to a place that they wanted to be when they came to the restaurant, and they received value for that. And then I would monitor the outcome through the tip average as a gauge as to how the clients thought their experience was. If my tip average was over 20%, then I knew that the customers were voting with actual money, that they were happy with the service that was rendered. If a particular server was getting a lower percentage, then I would look at that. And then on top of that, I would do a Bill Hewitt Packard management style, which was management by walking around. I usually don't have a desk. I will just go out and talk to the customers. I will be involved in the hubbub of everything that's going on from the front of the back of the house. So I'm taking a pulse of the business as it's actually functioning and operating on a Friday, a Saturday night. The employees know that I'm there monitoring the business. The customers know I'm there monitoring the business, and everybody appreciates that. And I get so much fulfillment and joy out of the interconnection and that human connection with the people as I walk around and thank them for coming into the restaurant. So it has a lot of ways that have great outcomes for not only me, but the guests that come there. When they are finished with their meal and they walk out the door and they close the door behind them in the restaurant, I can 100% assure you their problems will be right there waiting for them when they come out the door and move on. But if I was able to give them that 2 hours of escape, then I did my job.
For just a second, because I'd like to hear, how did you pivot from from building pools to the restaurant? Like, what happened? What was the sequence of events that led up to that?
Yeah, that a lot of people want to know that. That was probably one of the stupidest things I ever did in my life. No, basically,
you're supposed to do it though. It's that random. I'm just making it up.
So I love construction. I love creating things for people, but I had built over 5,000 swimming pools at that point, and I was looking for a new challenge. I was probably a little more full of myself than I should have been as far as like what kind of business guy I am. And I had a couple of daughters that were living in San Francisco at the time, which is like around 100 miles away from we were living in Modesto. And they would invite us to come down and see them all the time. Well, they didn't really want to see me and my wife. What they wanted to do is go to these expensive fucking restaurants, excuse my language, expensive restaurants in San Francisco, and mom and dad pay for it. So while I'm going out to these restaurants, they're working on me. I had owned a property in Modesto that was a wedding facility. We had bought this property years ago, and we were going to put our swimming pool construction business in this corner where we're going to wait to sell it to Arco or Chevron or something when town moved out that way. When we bought that property, it had a conditional use permit to have a wedding facility on it. We went down to the city and told them we wanted to put a construction yard there. They said that ain't going to happen because there was like a residential, nice high-end developments around it. So they go, you're not going to put a construction yard on that property. That's just not, we're not going to zone it for it. But you do have a conditional use permit. So we went in there and used our pool company to remodel the place, put yards in and gardens in. And my ex-partner's sister managed a wedding facility for us where we're going to let caterers come in there and just rent it. Like you can rent it and have a wedding and all of that. We put all this commercial kitchen in there. The first customers that we had, we rented it to a catering company, and they had a big wedding there. And the weekend after the wedding, we went in there and all the knobs were gone from the stove.
Oh.
Day one. I looked at my partner. I go, well, guess what? We're in the catering business. I'm not going to go through this anymore. So basically, we hired a chef. We basically went through that whole thing, and we did weddings for probably around 10 or 12 years. So we had this building. We had a commercial kitchen. We had a wedding business going. We did like 70, 80 weddings a year. It was a beautifully landscaped grounds and all of that. And then the girls said, why don't you make it a restaurant? Well, that was the scary part. And that's when I transformed it into a restaurant. And at that point, it was more or less a challenge to myself as could I actually operate that business as well as I had operated the pool business. Are you familiar with SIC codes? Standardized Industrial Codes. Okay, if you were to take your tax return, on the top right-hand corner, you have an industrial classification that the government wants you to identify. We're a fine casual restaurant with a bar, and that's a certain code. It's like a 971 or whatever it is, and your accountant's going to put that in the corner. And then what's going to happen is the government is going to compile that data in a blind format, and they will take all 971s, where maybe 10,000 of them in the United States, maybe 100,000 of them, whatever business it might be. They'll aggregate that data together, sanitize it so you don't know what business it is, and make charts of so for example, out of all of those fine casual businesses, 20% of them are making 3 to 5% net profit. And then 45% of them are making anywhere between 6 and 9 or 12% profit. But then there's this outlier. There's 5% that are making 20% or 22% profit. So I would get these reports on that given industry, find out what the outliers were doing, which made the highest possible net profit in that industry that's being extracted by extremely highly developed vendors in that industry, and then work my way towards becoming an outlier business. And that outlier business is a composite of all the little things and the nuances that an outlier business in your community. You'll go to it. It'll be extremely successful. It'll be making things look easy. The customers they're having a predictable outcome. When they go to that business, they know what they're going to receive. It's like, for example, in California, probably the biggest example of that would be In-N-Out Burger. It's like a simple menu in the restaurant industry. They haven't basically glorified it to 50 million chicken nuggets and everything else under the sun. They make a burger, a double-double, a cheeseburger, a milkshake, whatever, fries, and okay, let's call it a day. But it's the best thing that you're going to receive from that point, and that is an outlier business. So I've always approached businesses that I know that an outlier exists, and then I want to go for that. When I sold my company, I became a certified business intermediary, which is basically I was going to go in and start buy and flip companies, which I did a few of them. I bought an air conditioning company. I bought a plumbing service company. Basically went in there, turned them around a little bit, and then sold them. I sold the plumbing company back to the guy that sold it to me, because I showed that guy how what we did is he did an hourly pricing model, and we turned around and changed it to a flat rate pricing model that was utilized after the auto industry. And I turned his profit, the profitability of the business that was somewhere around 8 and 10%. It was up to 23% with a flat rate pricing model. The guy comes in and goes, "I'll buy this thing back now." Now they know how to make money with it. It was interesting. Yeah, it was kind of a fun journey. So I don't know if that was a long bloviated answer to it, but the other thing is that creating memories for people and making people feel special. The restaurant industry is a vehicle that I can do that in. and it gives me great reward and joy to have that human connection with people by be creating memories. So I'll give you an example of that. We go out to restaurants. You go out to a restaurant. It's your birthday. Your wife says it's your birthday, your significant other. And all of a sudden you got the staff over there clapping their hands, saying happy birthday, squeezing rubber ducks or whatever the hell they're doing. It's kind of an embarrassing thing or whatever. So I want to recognize people for their birthday anniversary, but I don't want to do that. So I travel extensively. I'm in Vietnam, and I come by this store which sells gongs and ceremonial drums. So I decide to buy a gong. I buy this gong. I bring it home. I know my wife's not going to let me put it in the house. And I come up with this story. I go, okay, here's what we're going to do. When it's your birthday, I'm going to bring the gong over. You're going to hit the gong, the customer will, and the noise will go out in the ether of the space, and the gods will grant your birthday wish. Huh. People absolutely loved it. So you're in the restaurant and you hear this gong over in the corner go off. Well, what's that all about? So then you're walking around and you tell people what it's about. All of a sudden it's their birthday. It's their anniversary. People want to hit the gong. It's like a personal recognition. I have like 85-year-old women hitting the gong because they heard about being able to celebrate in the restaurant. They never hit a gong before for their birthday. So how can you make like a unique experience that can give people a little window of laughter and joy and something in your system? And how can you integrate that in for personal recognition? And that is, I'm always seeking ways to make my customers and my employees feel special and respected. And that's a team-oriented leadership thing. And what that does is, if you would have come with me when I come into the restaurant, I enter into the back door, the first people that I'm talking to and thanking are my dishwashers. I'm going in the back. I'm talking to the busboys. I'm talking to the servers. I'm thanking them for their service. I'm telling them, encouraging them for what they're doing and bringing it up. I had a restaurant in the Central Valley of California, which is in San Francisco, but it was a very busy restaurant. I had 5 servers in my restaurant that all made over $100,000 a year in tips. So that was the customers voting with what they were receiving in that experience.
I always love to hear the stories about how somebody does a pivot and then moves to something completely different, because there's always a good story behind it. And it always teaches us that sometimes in business, we've got to make a move and do something slightly different. So as we're coming towards the end here, what I do want is...
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Oh,
what's
ahead.
that?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it is, when you go on a journey like a business people, like me personally, I couldn't see myself as a swimming pool guy my whole life. I knew there was more to life than that, and I actually don't see myself as a restaurant guy my whole life either. But what I do is I'm a designer, I'm a builder, I'm a creator. I'm trying to create environments in the restaurants through nonverbal communication, where I'm doing a lot of this work, and you can see that on my YouTube channel.
Absolutely, and it'll be in the show
can I
notes
plug
as well,
that?
so you can click on your links. So.
Yeah, it's get back to work. Get back, the number 2 work, exclamation point. That restaurant that I'm building now, that I think I don't know if we talked about the Mormon church before the show, or but you're getting close to the end. Do you want me to tell that story, or do people care? Yeah, so I built this restaurant up to an extremely popular restaurant. It actually got voted the 18th most romantic restaurant in California on Yelp out of 68,000 restaurants. So it was doing well. But next door to my restaurant was a Mormon church. The Mormon church decided they were going to build a temple. The temple was going to be a $160 million temple. They build like 4 or 5 of them a year around the world. And they didn't want a bar and a restaurant on the main colonnade going into the church. So we negotiated with them. We finally got a multiple offer for the value of it, and we decided to sell, or I decided to sell the business. But I had this ongoing restaurant that was just like every night. It's like hundreds of people there, cars all over the place. It was crazy. So we decided that we're going to move the restaurant. Well, the developer that is developing one of the largest subdivisions in Northern California called River Islands on the Delta, which was 20 miles away from me, heard about it. His manager, Susan, and partner came in. We walked around the restaurant. We made a video of the restaurant and what we want to do and sent it to this billionaire. He got back in 24 hours, said, I want to do the deal. In 2 weeks, he shows up randomly. Susan goes, Bob, Alan's here, wants to meet you. So this billionaire shows up at my restaurant. We walk around the restaurant. Now, this guy develops in Dubai, France, Poland, North and South Carolina, Texas, Canada, California, and South Korea. He has architects all over the place. He walks through this restaurant. He looks at me and goes, Bob, an architect could not build this because they're too formally trained. I go, you've got this eclectic feel to it, and we love it. So he is the third largest landowner in Napa, California. He owns 1,400 acres of vineyards in Napa. This large subdivision that he had, it was saying this premiered lot that was up on the Delta. It had views of the river and the subdivision, all that. And his plan was to put a mini winery on that lot to tie in his wineries in Napa to his large subdivision. After the meeting he had with me, he got in the car with his Susan, his lieutenant, said, Susan, I want to go in partners with Bob. I want to give him my lot, and I want Redwood Cafe to be moved on that lot, and I want to get that going right away. I had contracts in 2.5 weeks to move my restaurant to be partners with this large multinational corporation and build this iconic restaurant. And now it's a year into it and we're going like crazy. This is like, I didn't choose the size of it, but they did. It's a 16,000 square foot restaurant. It's like, are you shitting me? So now we've got and directly next to it, they're building an amphitheater. So the restaurant's going to be on a hill looking down over live shows. It's going to have a patio. Anybody in the restaurant industry that's hearing this story, it's just a fairy tale. End of story. It's a fairy tale. So it actually happens to me, Bob. It's kind of like when I had my 4th grandchild. I had my lawyers in the restaurant, and I walk up to them and his wife, and I walked up to him. I said, "Yeah, I just can't believe that this has happened to me." And they're looking at me, and I go, here I am, Bob Campana, just ordinary restaurateur guy. And would you believe it? But my grandchild was just born, and everybody says that this is the most beautiful child in the whole world. I mean, and it's my grandchild. How could that happen? They're sitting there looking at you like, okay, yeah, right. That's almost like this restaurant fairy tale. It's just a completely out of the outer space experience for me to be having at 71 years old. I had told him, I go, Alan, I just sold my business to the Mormon church, and I'm kind of like got this little layout plan. I'm 70 years old. I've got my friends over in Sicily. We're building an apartment over there to kind of toggle back and forth from Italy and really enjoy that. And I have this small tour company where I take small groups and wine tours and architectural experiences around the world. And he goes, yeah, but you really want to build this restaurant, don't you? And be involved in that. So I'll pay you to do that. And maybe you can change your idea a little bit. And that's what I'm doing.
That's an amazing story. I love it. So, well, unfortunately, I wish we wish we could be on here for another hour, because it would just be an awesome thing. But we are at the end of the show. So I want to just tell you, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's really awesome to hear about all of the experiences you've had, all of the stories behind it. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are going to relate with them as well. And just wanted to say, also want to make sure, check the show notes. You'll be able to take learn a little bit more about Bob. Also, make sure that you pick up his book, Don't Look Down. Yes.
Yeah, buy my book. Yeah. Don't Look Down, and it'll tell you that journey. And I'm here to thank you, Andrew, for your most kind offer to have me on your show, and I very much enjoyed it. So thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you and all of yours.
Thank you very much for being on. It was an honor. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hustle and Grind podcast, where we unpack what it really takes to build something that matters. If today's conversation hit home, do me a favor. Share it with someone who's in the trenches too. And if you're building your own brand, platform, or message and want help turning that story into serious authority, head over to theauthorityforge.com to see how we can help. Until next time, keep showing up, keep shipping, and keep chasing the work that sets you on fire. I'm Andrew, and this was the Hustle and Grind Podcast.